because he has accepted something, but it has to be implemented. But with that if in there, we have to really now move on the humanitarian front, figure out ways for the refugees to be able to return in an organized fashion, and work out the other aspects of this, the whole agreement. So there is a lot of military work to be done, but obviously a great deal of diplomatic work also.
Madam Secretary, have you had an opportunity to speak with anyone from representing the KLA, and if so, whom? And do you have any doubts whether or not they will accept these terms and whether or not they will in fact disarm?
First of all, let me say that we have been in touch with various members of the Kosovar Albanian community, including the KLA, and I will continue to be in touch with them. It is our expectation that they will demilitarize according to the Rambouillet, on the basis of the Rambouillet agreements. But the main question here is for all Serb forces to withdraw, and that is where the focus is now. But obviously, I think that the staying in very close touch with the Kosovo community is very much a part of my agenda.
Follow-up, when you say you've been in touch with them, has that been since Ahtisaari has returned from Belgrade?
I personally have not, but members of my staff have.
Madam Secretary, how critical a role did President Ahtisaari play, both in bringing, do you think, in bringing Milosevic to the point where he accepted, and also bringing the NATO and Russian positions closer together?
First of all, I must say that both Mr. Chernomyrdin and President Ahtisaari played a very important role in this partnership that they were able to develop. And I also I give great credit to Mr. Talbot in the detailed work that he has done with the two of them. And Mr. Ahtisaari, I think, was able to play an important role because of who he is and the respect that he has from the international community. First of all, he is highly respected within Europe. Finland is about to take over the European Union presidency for the next 6 months, and in that role he is highly respected. Also, he has a background in terms of the work that he did on Bosnia, so he is known within the UN and international circles. And he is a very clear and determined man, and I think that his personal stature and his the positions that he holds, the combination of those two things made him very important. And Mr. Chernomyrdin, I think we have to say that he has worked very, very hard on this and has deserves a great deal, if this in fact comes to pass, a great deal of credit. And I think that the two of them developed a very good partnership.
Madeleine Albright using the one word coming from United States officials here in Washington in reaction to Yugoslavia's acceptance of a NATO peace plan. The word is caution. The Secretary of State telling reporters that the conflict will continue till the terms of the agreement are complied with and implemented by President Slobodan Milosevic. As she put it, quote, "We have to see implementation of what he has agreed to do." Judy?
And coming up on WorldView, which comes right after this, we will have reports from Belgrade, from Cologne, Germany, and from here in Washington, plus an interview with U.S. Defense Secretary William Cohen. Bernie and I will be right back.
Is this not the face of possibility, of objectivity, of integrity? There is another world far from the numbers that you know, where the future of your business lies just beyond your vision, where opportunity dances at the edge of your understanding. All of this can I see. What can you see?
The CPA. You see numbers, we see opportunities.
The kids come first. They're always on your mind. They're always first and foremost there. I'm Cynthia Hodges. I work at Ford Motor Company. I'm an engineer, and I'm also a mom.
We're the people who buy and use WinStar. We know what it's like to have kids, and that helped us design this car. It's
full of ideas that moms will love.
I'm able to open the doors and they're not blinded by dome lights.
Because you never want to wake a sleeping baby.
That allows me to listen to the music I like and my kids can listen to what they like in the back.
My mom's favorite type of music is old stuff.
This sensor is really smart. The beeps get faster as you're about to back into something. Beep, 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 beep.
Parents always want the best for their children.
The safety rating. Safety was the utmost importance, and the 5-star rating was a big deal.
I designed it for my neighbors. I designed it for my playgroup. I designed it for what's now become a part of my life.
Hey, my mom built that car.
Better ideas, driven by you.
Change is everywhere in the world of business, which is okay until change comes crashing at your feet. Well, that's why people call fast signs. In fact, almost as fast as you can change your mind, fast signs can change your signs. We make the signs that tell people who you are and what you do. Or rather, what you do today.
The word is about. There's something evolving. Whatever may come, the world keeps revolving. They say the next big thing is here, that the revolution's near. But to me it seems quite clear that it's all just a little bit of history repeating.
I'm Judy Woodruff along with my colleague Bernard Shaw in Washington. Welcome to WorldView. Coming up, reports from Cologne, Germany, from the White House. But we begin in Belgrade, where the Serbian parliament has voted to accept an international peace plan for Kosovo. But still, no word from Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic himself. We have comprehensive coverage, starting, as we say, with CNN's Walt Rogers in Belgrade.
Despite initial skepticism from NATO countries, those who met with Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic were convinced he has now accepted terms for ending the war laid down by the major powers. Goran Matic, a senior Yugoslav government minister, announced, quote, "There is a deal." Still to be heard from is President Milosevic himself, but Europe's peace envoy, Finnish President Matti Ahtisaari, also present, said all relevant parties accepted the offer.
I would also hope that this decision would lead to contacts between the military so that we can come and start implementation of the plan.
Highlights of the peace plan include withdrawal of all Serb troops from Kosovo, repatriation of more than 800,000 Kosovar refugees, and an international security force with NATO troops at the core to protect the refugees. Belgrade's acceptance of the peace plan was clearly signaled by this emergency meeting of the Serb parliament. The parliament's overwhelming approval meant President Milosevic wanted the deal, even if it was a take-it-or-leave-it proposal. Not all Serbs liked the major powers' terms for ending the war.
It means that Serbia's government capitulated, since it accepted foreign troops in the territory of Serbia.
We will never accept aggressor troops in any part of Serbia.
On Belgrade streets, reaction was reserved and guarded, cautious about what will happen next.
I don't know how Americans will react. I think Americans just prefer bombing us.
A senior government official called the day's events the first step toward peace in Yugoslavia. Still, the Balkans have been racked by war for nearly a decade now, and securing a genuine peace may be at least as challenging as waging war. So when the peace envoys from Europe and Russia departed this time, theirs may only have been a temporary goodbye. Walter Rogers, CNN, Belgrade.
We remind our viewers CNN's reporting from Yugoslavia is subject to certain restrictions set by Yugoslav authorities. CNN must seek permission to videotape news events, and unrestricted travel outside of Belgrade is not permitted. Ernie.
Joining us now from the Pentagon, the Defense Secretary of the United States, William Cohen. Mr. Secretary, why have the Yugoslavians agreed?
Well, I really can't answer why they've agreed. What I can say is that our air campaign has been intensified for some time now, and it gets stronger each day and does more damage to Mr. Milosevic's forces each day. why he has accepted this, and we hope that not only accepts it but implements it before any real positive action can take place on our part remains to be seen, and he will have to declare for himself his rationale and reasons for it. But I can say that the air campaign has been intensified. As a result of that, we're seeing damage done on a fairly substantial basis each day.
Mr. Secretary, are you and others in the administration suggesting that there will be no let-up whatsoever in the NATO air campaign, the bombing campaign, in light of what the Yugoslav parliament has voted?
We have indicated from the very beginning there must not only be an acceptance in word of this agreement, there must be an acceptance in deed. There must be a manifestation of the intent to comply with this agreement by pulling forces out. So until such time as we see that manifestation, we intend to continue the air campaign. We're not going to rely upon either acts or statements of Parliament or paper promises. We have to see the deeds being carried out.
Among the deeds to be carried out, the withdrawal of Serb forces. How can you assure yourself and the NATO allies that every Serb soldier will have withdrawn?
Well, we have a substantial capability of seeing what is taking place on the ground. To the extent that the Serbs start to move their forces out in substantial numbers and indicate an intent to carry forward the entire agreement, we can make a judgment at that point as to whether we will continue or not continue the campaign. Obviously, we would not seek to impede their withdrawal pursuant to an agreement on their part to fully withdraw from Kosovo, but we will make that judgment at an appropriate time. Until we see the actual performance as opposed to simply the words, then we intend to continue the campaign.
Mr. Secretary, do you see that do you acknowledge that there still will be a Serb role in the new Kosovo, the Kosovo post this NATO bombing campaign?
Well, as the agreement provides, there can be some minor participation on the part of the Serbs as far as guarding some sacred sites, be a very small number of Serbs that would be allowed into Kosovo. The key element, of course, is to have that peacekeeping force that is robust enough to make sure that security and safety of the refugees can be guaranteed, and that there will be a command and control structure under NATO's umbrella as such, and those are the key elements. And so we think that there can be some minor participation on the part of the Serbs, but not in very large numbers.
Secretary Cohen, should President Slobodan Milosevic be put on trial for war crimes and atrocities?
That's completely up to the court to make that determination. There has been an indictment, and I would assume that the prosecutor would intend to carry through with the indictment, but that's up to the court, not for me.
Secretary William Cohen, thanks for joining us on WorldView.
My pleasure.
Quite welcome. Western reaction to the agreement has been hopeful but cautious. We have two live reports from senior White House correspondent Wolf Blitzer and chief international correspondent Christian Amanpour in Cologne, Germany, where Finnish President Ahtisaari flew to brief European leaders after his trip to Belgrade. Christian, first to you.
Well, Bernie, it started to rain and it's cold, but really it's not an exaggeration to say it can't rain on the European leaders' parade today because, quite frankly, NATO leaders have been holding their breath for now nearly 10 weeks of bombing campaign, and today, for the first time here, they have been able to breathe a collective sigh of relief. While they're very pleased with what the Finnish president, their envoy, Matti Ahtisaari, has been able to achieve in Belgrade, the watchword is caution, although they say it's a good day for diplomacy, and they are very, very pleased that their NATO coalition held together in an extraordinary fashion. Everybody is talking caution, and they're saying the proof will be in the implementation and that the Yugoslav leader must now do that.
I think you're just sensibly cautious. If you're dealing with Milosevic and you're dealing with a situation in which there have been so many terrible things done. And I've got no doubt at all we wouldn't be in this position were it not for the fact that NATO has demonstrated unity, demonstrated resolve.
Now, the European leaders also were very careful to thank and pay tribute to the Russian participation. Viktor Chernomyrdin, the special Russian envoy, made several trips to Belgrade, and they went out of their way today to praise his efforts. What's clear in the end, though, according to the European leaders, is that Russia eventually came on board with NATO's conditions, agreeing most significantly to a NATO peace force in Kosovo, and that they felt perhaps was the thing that made Milosevic realize that he really had nowhere else to turn. Now we go to CNN senior White House correspondent Wolf Blitzer at the White House for reaction from the leader of the NATO alliance.
Christian, President Clinton and other top advisors are very, very happy about what's going on, although publicly they're avoiding any sense of gloating. They're avoiding any sense that this is a done deal because they've been down here before. They say they can't necessarily trust the words of either the Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic or his parliament. At the same time, Mr. Clinton is warning that the airstrikes, at least for the time being, will continue.
First, we must have clarity that the Serbian leadership has fully accepted these conditions and intends to fully implement them. Until then, and until Serb forces begin a verifiable withdrawal from Kosovo, we will continue to pursue diplomacy, but we will also continue the military effort that has brought us to this point.
U.S. officials say the next 24 to 48 hours will be critical in determining whether this peace process is going to go forward. We just heard from the Defense Secretary William Cohen announce that there will be an effort made in the next day or two or three to go forward with the start of a military-to-military conversation between NATO and the Yugoslav military forces. The purpose would be to begin that Serb withdrawal of their 40 to 50,000 military, paramilitary, and police forces from Kosovo. Wolf Blitzer, CNN, reporting live from the White House.
Thank you, Wolf, and thank you, Christian. Well, some details of the Kosovo peace plan have yet to be worked out. CNN's David Ensor reports on some potential sticking points.
The peace plan approved by the parliament in Belgrade appears to fully meet NATO's demands. But as U.S. officials were cautioning, the devil is in the details, and there could still be trouble with them. For example, the plan says the UN Security Council, where Russia has a veto, will decide on Kosovo's interim government. The Serbs believe that will give them some key leverage.
This would ensure Milosevic a long-term role because it gives Milosevic a main voice in the future of Kosovo through the Security Council.
The plan also leaves many details yet to be worked out. When will Serb forces start to withdraw? What is a verifiable withdrawal that would prompt NATO to stop bombing? When will NATO and other peacekeeping forces start moving into Kosovo? And will Russia be part of the peacekeeping force?
We, the United States, and I think this is a view shared by all of our allies, think that it would be a very good thing if Russia is part of that.
U.S. officials point to the way Russian and American troops have worked together in Bosnia keeping the peace as a model for Kosovo. But there is no agreement yet. Then there is the key issue of who is in military command of the peacekeepers. The U.S. says it must be NATO. The plan says the forces will be under overall UN jurisdiction. How the details are worked out could be critical.
Before the United States puts a single soldier in, or anybody else from NATO, you have to be sure about who's in charge. And there's a test. The test is, will refugees feel comfortable enough to go home?
But while the deal is not yet done, U.S. officials are pointing out that their strategy of sticking with the air campaign for more than 10 weeks does appear to have convinced the Serbs to give in to NATO demands. They aren't celebrating here yet, but they are relieved. David Ensor, CNN, the Pentagon.
News of the peace proposal spread quickly among Kosovo's refugees. Many reacted cautiously. CNN's Ben Wiedemann reports from the Stankovic refugee camp in Macedonia.
It was news the Kosovar refugees were waiting to hear. But when the news was broadcast over loudspeakers at Stankovic refugee camp, it was met with a strong dose of skepticism.
Yeah, we're happy, but we can't believe it because we always get those news that it's going to be good, but they change their minds.
I heard the news today, and I mean that Milosevic many times give promises and never he don't. I mean he lying.
A timetable for the return of the refugees is still a long way off, even if the peace plan is signed, sealed, and delivered. Given the logistical challenge of moving more than 250,000 refugees out of Macedonia, it will be weeks and more likely months before they can begin to leave. And before that can happen, a NATO-led peacekeeping force, much of it currently based in Macedonia, would have to move in. That force now stands at more than 15,000 and will be increased to 30,000 in the coming weeks.
Trained multinational forces here who have been doing nothing but training, maintaining our military skills, and we're ready to implement a peace agreement if directed to do so.
For the time being, the refugees will have to stay put, enduring conditions difficult enough as they are, and bound to deteriorate as summer sets in. As much as these refugees would like to return home today, it will take far more than news from Belgrade to convince them it is safe to return. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Stankovic Refugee Camp, Macedonia.
WorldView, 10 years after Tiananmen Square, we'll take a look at China today, what has changed and what hasn't.
We're not relying on the government.
We're not relying on the company.
We're not relying on a big fat inheritance.
We trade online.
We're betting on ourselves.
$7.95 stock trades, low margin interest rates, comprehensive research, shorttrade.com, the smart tool for smart investors.
While some folks couldn't sleep, you were peacefully sleeping thanks to new Simply Sleep from the makers of Tylenol PM. It's non-habit forming and eases you into a restful night's sleep. New Simply Sleep.
Rugged Montana from Pontiac, with not one but two sliding doors. Something handy for whoever's passing through. Life is more exciting in Montana.
Did you remember the milk?
Something wonderful is happening at Ditech. A complete metamorphosis has occurred. Introducing Ditech.com. Now you can get fast online approval for a low-cost home loan direct from the lender 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Ditech.com. You have to see it to believe it. Today's low 30-year fixed rate is just 6 3/4%. Get fast online approval or call 1-800-71-FIXED.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Bell Atlantic, your guide through the wiles of communications.
Tonight on Larry King Live, Madeleine Albright on the possibility of peace in Kosovo. And Governor Jesse Ventura, tonight 9 Eastern on CNN.
This is me and my family. And here's how hot our house was. Until a nice man called Brian came with an air conditioner. He said it has Piron, which will make the planet happy. And soon they're going to stop making the old air conditioner. So it'll save us money, which means more toys for Sparky.
Install a qualifying high-efficiency air conditioner and gas furnace and receive up to $500 cash back. In Portland, call System Air Incorporated.
The Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs, weeknight 6:30 Eastern on CNN.
On this 10-year anniversary of the crackdown in Tiananmen Square, China is facing new unrest. The story from CNN's Beijing bureau chief, Rebecca McKinnon.
Laid-off workers demonstrate for pay. Neighborhood residents protest corruption. A woman demands justice for a relative killed by medical malpractice. She says the courts didn't do anything. While police do their best to keep the outside world from seeing these protests, officials privately acknowledge ordinary people are taking their complaints to the streets, demanding their legal rights.
There's this kind of two-handed approach. On the one hand, use the legal system, but
but be prepared to make trouble, to use civil disobedience and collective action to promote your interests. I think that's a big change.
But as with these farmers in southern China fighting police over how their land can be used, the demands are personal or very local. That's in part because the government has locked up or exiled most dissidents who've tried to turn personal grievances into larger political action. There are also many Chinese who've profited from the last 10 years of China's economic growth and who don't want to rock the boat.
The
public's attitude has changed since the 1980s. People are only interested in earning money.
For me personally, human rights means the way I live my life, says this woman. I have to be careful not to lose my job. If somebody else has a problem, I can't help. 10 years after the crackdown on pro-democracy demonstrators, it's personal interest, not political interest, that motivates most Chinese today. That's why the growth of social unrest around the country is not likely to bring the government down anytime soon. Rebecca McKinnon, CNN, Beijing.
And for WorldView, I'm Bernard Shaw.
And I'm Judy Woodruff. The Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs next.
This is the Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs, reporting tonight from London.
Tonight on the News Hour, a major breakthrough in the quest for peace after 72 days of war. Slobodan Milosevic accepts a plan to withdraw his forces from Kosovo after a decade of military rule. The critical questions, will it work? And should NATO trust the word of an indicted war criminal?
It's going to be in the river. The airplane is in the river on fire. Alert 3 at number 1 Airport Road.
And reconstructing the last terrifying moments of American Airlines Flight 1420. Investigators look into what the crew knew about the brutal weather in Little Rock at the time of the deadly crash landing. Good evening. Our top story tonight, a push toward peace to end the only war that NATO has ever fought. After more than 2 months of relentless bombings by NATO forces, Yugoslavia today agreed to an international peace plan to withdraw its forces from Kosovo. The State Department spokesman summed up the United States reaction in 4 words: extremely cautious, extremely suspicious. We begin our coverage tonight with the details of the plan and the intense round of diplomacy that brought Slobodan Milosevic to board. Bill Dorman has the story.
The 72nd day of NATO bombing in Yugoslavia brought news that could lead to peace. Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic accepted the terms of the peace plan after meeting with Russian envoy Viktor Chernomyrdin and Finland's President Martti Ahtisaari, representing the European Union. The Yugoslav parliament voted to accept the peace plan the two men brought, despite reports of angry exchanges that nearly broke down to fistfights. Finland's president was later welcomed by EU leaders meeting in Germany, where Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder told reporters, "This is a political breakthrough. Peace is now within reach." Ahtisaari says it may not take long for the NATO bombing to stop.
It's very difficult to give you a precise answer, but it would be in days, and very few days, that I understand that the suspension of the war activities, in other words, the pause in the bombing, would take place.
But before the bombing stops, Milosevic needs to prove his acceptance of the peace plan. The starting point, a withdrawal of Serbian forces from Kosovo, including troops, police, and paramilitary. The safe return of refugees, now estimated at more than 800,000. The presence of an international peacekeeping force in Kosovo. In return, the Kosovo Liberation Army, which has been fighting the Milosevic government, would give up its weapons. The KLA's political leader told German television the rebels will accept the plan. NATO members still sound cautious about the prospects for peace.
We've had too many empty promises in the past from President Milosevic. This time we don't want another promise. We want to see action carrying out his side of the...
At the United Nations and overseas tonight, reaction to the Kosovo peace deal is optimistic, but there is wariness. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, whose organization would play a key role in any peace settlement, says he is encouraged by the news. China, enraged by NATO's bombing of its Belgrade embassy, says ending airstrikes now is critical to a political deal. And in Italy, Prime Minister Massimo D'Alema warns the past teaches us that we must be careful. For more now on Reaction Abroad, we're joined live by Christian Amanpour, who is in Cologne, where the EU summit is underway. Christian?
Yes, indeed, Lou, and a collection of European leaders, European NATO leaders here in Cologne for their European Council meeting. It's a wet and damp night, but the leaders feel vindicated. They say that the word from Belgrade means that their policy worked, although they are urging caution. They are delighted that their extraordinary unity in the NATO coalition held this far, despite some fractious coalitions and some wavering public opinion in some countries, but they are very, very pleased. Now, the Finnish President, Martti Ahtisaari, came back from Belgrade. He was the EU envoy who went not to negotiate with the Yugoslav president, but to lay down the text, what he called the best agreement that the international community could offer right now. And when asked whether Slobodan Milosevic really got it, he said he was sure he did.
I think his understanding of English language is as good as mine.
So he gets it.
I'm certain that he got what was in the text, because I went it through. I answered questions about when clarification was sought. So I don't think that there can be any misunderstanding what is expected of them.
Now, Mr. Ahtisaari and the other European leaders here today very careful to pay tribute to the Russian initiative and the Russian help here, the effort in trying to get this peace deal, and the Russian Special Envoy Viktor Chernomyrdin, who made many trips to Belgrade. Now, it appears in the end that the Russians did agree to what NATO wanted, which was a NATO-led peacekeeping force, and perhaps, say leaders here, that made Milosevic realize that he had nowhere else to turn, and that's what perhaps turned this in favor of agreeing to a peace deal right now. Lou?
Christian, thank you very much. Christian Amanpour reporting from Cologne. Well, NATO bombing did not pause for diplomacy over the past 24 hours, with pilots flying more than 600 sorties. That brings the total flown since the campaign began to more than 31,000. Of them, more than a third bombing missions. 20,000 bombs or missiles have been dropped or launched with an accuracy rate, according to the Pentagon, of 99.6%. That impressive figure, however, includes the disastrous bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. While the air raids continue, the White House is watching the developments in Kosovo with some hope and some degree of nervousness. Wolf Blitzer has more on Bill Clinton's reaction as the most controversial military action of his presidency has reached a critical moment.
President Clinton is reacting guardedly to Yugoslavia's apparent readiness to comply with NATO's long-standing demands.
Movement by the Serbian leadership to accept these conditions, established by NATO and the international community, is of course welcome.